Projection. Part 1. Individual.
Projection, projection, projection. We're not talking about the kind of projection where you throw your voice to the back of the room. We're not talking about the kind of projection where it's a machine that sends an image to a screen. We're talking about the kind of projection where it's a psychological defense. This defense called projection, and a lot of people are talking about it these days. You hear it all the time on Twitter and online. You're projecting. No, you're projecting. And they're talking about what this thing is, what this defense is. So we're going to have a good look at it today. What is this thing called projection? It's when we can't see something within ourselves, usually something we cannot stand seeing in ourselves. And so we see it in somebody else instead. Odd, eh? Well, the Bible, the New Testament, had a great thing where Jesus said something like, how can you see the speck of sawdust in your neighbor's eye when you can't see the log in your own? If you start seeing the log in your own, then maybe you'll be able to help him out with the speck. What he's saying is we first need to look at ourselves. We first need to see this thing that's inside us that we can't see. Because most people cannot see this thing. It's invisible, and they point it at somebody else. You're the problem. You're doing this. You're doing that. And the person who they're pointing to is usually scratching their head saying, what the hell? That's not me. Because they know intuitively this is not them. They know this is probably not them at all, but they see this barrage coming in their direction. So what the heck's going on? Therapists see this thing all the time. They see one spouse is having an affair, right? And so that spouse starts worrying and thinking that the other spouse is having an affair. And that's kind of projecting. They're projecting out what they're doing onto someone else. So it can be a tricky thing. One of the things you need to make sure is that you do not argue with someone who's projecting. Why not? Why not argue with someone? Well, because they're not in a rational space. This is an unconscious mechanism. They're literally dealing with their unconscious. They're not aware of what's going on. And if you try and argue with them over what's going on, you're just going to have problems. My father used to tell me over and over again, number one rule, never argue with a blown fuse. That's good advice. And guess what? People who are projecting are blown fuses. They cannot and will not hear any rational argument. You could be as logical as you want to be. They're not going to get it. They're simply not going to get it because this is all unconscious, what's going on. So trying to reason with people is silly. It's not going to work. Just walk away. Say, thank you for sharing. Not today. And there's something else that goes on with people who are projecting. Usually there's some emotion that goes along with it. They're not talking rationally. They're not talking logically. They're talking emotionally. And sometimes even it gets heated. It's this heat. It's right. And whatever you do, don't challenge that. Because if you challenge it, what happens? Most of you out there already know what happens. You get attacked. You get attacked. Remember, this is not rational. This is not logical. This doesn't make all kinds of sense. This is just something that's going on inside them where they're seeing something inside themselves that they can't see and they're projecting it out onto you and you're challenging that. What's going to happen? Kaboom. Things are going to just throw into a mess. Well, the theorists talk about projection as being a lower order defense. Now, what do they mean by that? Lower order defense. What they mean is that projection is a primitive defense. It's kind of linked up with denial. It's like a primitive defense, as opposed to what they call the higher order defenses are things like rationalization, intellectualization, things like that. But projection is a lower order defense. And that's why, when you challenge it, kaboom, things will tend to blow. And you'll get attacked. Where do we pick this stuff up? Why all of a sudden do we have these unconscious bits inside that we project out on someone else? What's the origin of that? And usually in families, the parents have a tendency to project onto their children. It's just a natural kind of thing where parents will project on the kids and the kids start picking up the problems of the parents, right? And then we as children carry that into our adult lives and we hold on to it. And that becomes a part of us. We can't see this part of us. It's unconscious. And so we see it in other people. And, you can see this all the time. You can see this when people are pointing the finger at you. You can see it and feel it, that something's not right about it. And that this is just, it's not really the reality that you know. It's kind of an alternate reality in a way. And this brings up the question, what can we do with projections? And the first thing is we can walk away from people who've got them, because it's not going to help to talk with them or to reason or to be compassionate or whatever. They're stuck. They're stuck, and you have to let them be stuck and figure it out. But what can we do when we start to realize that, I'm projecting? Because that is the critical piece. We need to find it within ourselves. We need to understand that we project. This whole thing of psychological development, of going from a boy to a man, a girl to a woman, is laced with this whole thing of what they call withdrawing projections. We withdraw the projections. We start to say, oh, God, that's right. That's correct. And I was thinking it was this way, but I'm not that way at all. I'm screwed up in some ways. So be it. Here I am as I am. So this idea of withdrawing projections is critical for people to know about. And it's just a matter of kind of asking yourself questions. Am I a part of that? Have I ever done something like that? I remember one time I was driving on the Washington Beltway years ago, and when it first came out in the 1960s. I guess it was the 60s. And this guy went flying by in the fast lane. It pissed me off. What the hell is he doing? Oh, I looked ahead, and there was this traffic jam ahead. He was trying to get ahead of everybody else in order to get there before other people could, which really just... And then I said to myself, Tom, did you want to do that too? And by George, I said, yep, I wanted to get ahead too. But I was willing to sacrifice him and call him an ass, because I saw that he was doing that. And guess what happened? Then this is just a little projection. I withdrew that back and I said, screw it. This is me too. This is not just this guy. And so when I did that, guess what happened? I started to be more compassionate with the guy that zoomed by, because I realized this was also something inside of me. This is not just something where it's just some jackass doing this and that. And as we slowly start to withdraw these projections and pull it back, what happens to us psychologically? We become more calm, we become more compassionate, we become more understanding of other people, because we realize that the same kind of crap they're pulling is in us. We've got a dose of that ourselves. And when we can see that within ourselves, it's much easier then to understand and to accept other people the way they are. And understand that, maybe next year they'll withdraw that projection. I did it a while back, doesn't mean they have to do it now. They are where they are. Can I love them and accept them the way they are now? So be it, right? And that is the work of maturity. That's the work of pulling these projections in, owning it yourself, and seeing, this is just the way things work.
That ends part 1. Keep in mind that accepting someone as they are does not keep you from speaking clearly about your own perspective. This takes on even more importance in part 2, where we'll look into projection and feminism. Men are good, as are you.